Well, first up, Fergus, we have 1,949 young people forming a Guard of Honour.
Yes, around this huge Chinese flag, obviously 1,949, representing 1949, the year the People's Republic of China was founded. And they're followed by another group of young people, 2,009 this time, and they're surrounding the Chinese national emblem. And obviously youth is going to be a theme of this parade.
Next up, we have the fourth generation of leaders, starting with Mao Zedong.
First of all, Mao Zedong's float and his famous phrase, the Chinese people have stood up. This will be the four generations of the leaders. He's followed by the float dedicated to Deng Xiaoping. Of course, he's always associated with using Chinese characteristics and China finding its own path. Then we have the third generation of leaders. This is the Jiang Zemin, who's actually watching this as the float goes past, and his phrase of the three represents of China. And finally, the float representing today's leader, President Hu Jintao, and his famous phrase, which is, of course, scientific development and harmonious society.
Following the leaders, we have the brilliant achievements in the country's history. 19 floats representing these.
Yes, and amongst these, of course, agriculture, very important to China. It now feeds 20%, over 20% of the world's population. And the new theme of transport, and we can see some of the proud achievements of China recently, the high-speed bullet trains, and its new regional Chinese-made jet, the AR-J21.
Following the achievements, we have an energy float. We have oil, nuclear, and of course alternative energy such as wind power.
Yeah, interesting that is followed straight away by the ecological and environmental float, green obviously for the colour, and associating the fact that China is moving away probably from fossil fuels and reliance on these to more alternative energies, and looking, one of the other phrases that is used very much in government today in China, ecology and environment, sustainable development.
Well, following the environmental float, we have the space float, the Shenzhou space rockets first up.
And of course, China's first astronaut, Yang Liwei, the choice person to appear on this float, but also what is now, as we can see here, reconstructed, China's first spacewalk reenacted. And of course, there is another aspect to this. The first female astronauts are now under selection in the Chinese Air Force.
Following that, education, of course, so important in Chinese society, teachers and students represented here. And then, immediately following the education, we have the sports stars.
Of course, yes, everybody knows Liu Xiang had trouble in the Olympics, but came out of that and is back in action, having appeared recently at Shanghai.
Li Ning, the man who lit the Olympic torch just over a year ago, and has a very famous and well-known sports brand here in China.
And that's followed by the formation, or the float, which represents the overseas Chinese, of course Chinese people from all over the world watching this parade today. We can see the words of that famous song which represents Chinese people around the world, My Chinese Heart, 我的中国心. And logically, after the overseas Chinese, we have the foreigners, and they're represented by some well-known faces on that float.
Well, coming towards the end now, Fergus, we have children in marching band groups, the young pioneers aged between 6 and 14.
Yes, children have been a theme through this, obviously representing hope for the future. The words spelled out in Tiananmen Square that we saw there, 明天更美好, which means tomorrow will be even better, so a sign of optimism. And of course also the pigeons, or doves more likely, that have been released and flying into the sky, again representing the hope for an even better future. Most people in China are seeing improved lifestyles all the time, and this is one of the signs that life will even get better.
Well, building up towards a colourful finish, over 5,000 children with balloons and flowers.
Yes, and they release those balloons to the air. The balloons rise into the air, most of them red. The children running to the rostrum has been a traditional end to the parade in the past. This also happened in 1999. It's been 2.5 hours, 100,000 people, and finally those 60 red lanterns in Tiananmen Square representing 60 years.